Hi, this is Tom Scarter, the author of The Magic of Choosing Uncertainty. I'm here with my friend Nick Taracio, who is the president of Ventura Aviation. We're here today to talk a little bit about air flight, being a passenger, but also getting in the plane and flying yourself. First, I want to thank you for buying my book and taking advantage of this neat little video. So first, I want to find out a little bit about you, Nick. How did you get into aviation?
Well, I was born into it. So for me, it was, since I've been 2, I've been around planes. I don't actually remember not being around planes. And then growing up through the process of going to college and realizing I didn't want to be a computer engineer, I actually really liked being around them. I just continued my path there. I ended up not finishing school, came to work full-time with the family business, and was flying Learjets by the time I was 19.
Wow. I remember you telling me a story about speaking at NASA at one point about...
Yeah, so interestingly enough, it relates to that story. I got invited to speak at NASA out near San Francisco, just south of San Francisco. And they basically had a bunch of kids from all over the world that they had brought in that were teenagers, that were really smart kids, and they were inventing stuff. So I got up and spoke about how you don't need to go to college, and that it's a waste of money and time. And interestingly enough, the students were the ones that reacted more negatively than the parents.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it was more of they had worked really hard and thought, well, that's what happens next. And I was challenging it, and they're like, but what am I supposed to do instead?
Right. I'm lost now.
Yeah.
Right? What am I going to do? So that's really interesting to me. That's a whole nother story we could talk about another time.
Exactly.
But the whole idea of flying, everybody I talk to has some kind of level of fear of flying, just being on a commercial airliner. I see people in their seats, doing the rosary and praying. But actually, it's safe. Any kind of details or information you could give somebody who is kind of like always anxious when they're getting ready to fly?
Well, I mean, so it speaks to two different things. I think the reality is that flying is statistically safe. I mean, we can sit there and read through the documentation and see what the actual numbers are and realize that it's, it's one of the safest activities you can do, short of staying in your bed. But I guess the problem is that really the fear it lives in the emotional center of the brain, and it's hard to overcome the emotional center even if you sit there and logic it all day long. So really, I think what it is taking control of the body reaction. So, for example, if you've ever had blood drawn and you didn't have any water or you didn't eat anything that day, and you start to have that response in the body where you're like, oh, I can feel myself passing out, I get flush in the head, and I feel that starting to come on. When you become aware of that stuff, you can change the breathing patterns. And you can literally take over your own physiology. There's a lot of stuff called biofeedback that talks about this, consciously slowing your heart rate and stuff like that. So that's probably the first thing, is noticing the signs and realizing that it really lives within learning how to control your body's response. But it also is helpful to have those little thoughts of it's safe because, and nothing's going to happen because. So knowing some of the facts, knowing some of the information, so when the fear comes up, at least you have something to rebut yourself internally to say, look, I know this is okay because, I know this is okay because,
Right.
and so forth.
So my biggest fear is the engines are going to shut off and the plane's going to drop out of the sky.
That happens in cartoons.
Right. So what's the reality? What's the aerodynamics behind all that?
Well, so every airplane is, basically it's a glider. If you took a plane and could hold it up in the air and throw it, it would fly. It's built to fly. So interestingly enough, the bigger the plane, the better the glide ratio. So like a 747, for example, could probably glide somewhere of around 100 miles if it was up at altitude.
Wow.
So that's like New York City to Montauk, roughly.
Wow.
And those planes have a lot of different devices on the wings. Obviously, if you've sat near the wing, you'll see on the back when they go to land, the flaps come down. Some of the planes have leading edge devices that droop down, and what that does is it makes the wing extremely efficient. And it could fly slower, and it basically can have an increased glide ratio because of that. So yeah, it's the big airplanes, they'll just go for days.
I never knew that. Even being a pilot, I train here at Ventura Air with Nick's crew, and I always felt, that the plane is going to fall out of the sky. And so there's some things you're telling me now I didn't even know yet. I mean, that's advanced stuff, I guess. But I love the whole lift, and the glide ratio of a plane. Makes me feel safe flying. And as Nick said, we could fly from New York to Montauk, Long Island. We happen to be on Long Island. Ventura Air is located at Republic Airport, right here in central Long Island, central Nassau, I would call it almost. So we're near Jones Beach. If you ever get out this way, you might want to take a little ride over New York City, right? So you guys do that kind of stuff here, is that right?
Yeah, basically what we'll do is, so we've kind of changed the model a little bit. People used to just go and say, I want to take a flight and go up once and be the pilot, but we thought, wouldn't it be cool if you really get to experience something about, beyond just taking off and landing?
Mm.
So we'll either take people around the city and they actually fly up the Hudson themselves with someone in the back, and it's about creating a memorable experience and an emotional data point. So it's like, remember that time we flew and it was really awesome? The other thing people could do is fly someone special to dinner up in another state. They land right next to the runway is a restaurant. And you almost like pull into the parking lot with the plane, and all the people in the cars are like, "What is this? How did you get here?"
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and interesting enough, that kind of stuff is the stuff that can also combat the fear.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to create a different emotional imprint. So it's really important for us to kind of rewrite that script for people, and just you get up there, you keep doing it, and your body will have a fear response sometimes. There are people that say, look, I'm not used to this sense of, how the plane feels and getting in the control of flying it, but your body rewires itself, and it really starts to say, oh, this is normal. It's normal to feel this sensation.
And that's kind of what I talk about in the book.
Yeah.
And that's why I really wanted to bring Nick in to give us a first-hand experience about flying. I talk a little bit about that in the book. The other thing I talk about on page 75 when you get there is actually Nick and how I met Nick one day in a whole different world, and he kind of brought me into this world of flying. And in the book I talk about having a picture of a Learjet on my computer for about 5 years, and I walk in to Nick's hangar, and there's the same exact Learjet model is in the hangar, and it was kind of like a crazy experience for me. The plane's actually right back there, the exact plane, and that kind of blew my mind. So you have Learjets. So aside from Cherokee Pipers that I practice on, what do you guys do at the charter?
Sure. So, kind of in the natural evolution of things, we started out as flight training, and then we realized, well, we could buy bigger airplanes, which are like the twin-engine planes that are 6 seats, and then for that, people would pay us, and we'd fly them around. We'd take them to Atlantic City or to Foxwoods or to any of the other casinos. We were doing a lot of flights like that. And then, my dad had been flying Learjets for another company and said, let's just get a Learjet. And
Yeah, let's just get one.
yeah, so interesting enough, he found a guy who was also into the idea and created a partnership, and we put our first Learjet online in 1999.
Wow.
And actually, no, maybe that was 1998. I remember coming on shortly thereafter and flying them about a year after we got them. So it was basically we've been flying people all over the Western Hemisphere with these things.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool toy. It really is. It's amazing the stuff you can do with the closest thing to a time machine.
Yeah, it's a BHAG goal for me. The big, hairy, audacious goal is to fly one and maybe even own one. That's my really big thing. I would love to do that. So
We'll get there.
well, hanging around with you, I'd definitely be there sooner or later. So this is just a great experience. I think, for my last question to kind of wrap this up is if somebody's really thinking about taking a lesson, but they're scared, frankly, they have fear. How could they get this off their bucket list?
Really, the best thing to do, I think, is find your local airport. Again, I mean, obviously we're in the New York area, but there's little airports everywhere in America, and there's great instructors, and there's, it really is, it's great environments that most of these flight schools are. It's a lot of people that are very passionate about this. They're not in it for the money, and they want more than anything to make new pilots, and not even to make new pilots, but just to make new experiences for people that have never done it before, so they can say, hey, I flew once, you should do it.
Right.
So the best thing you can do is go to the airport, find someone who just connects, you connect with, you feel like they really care about you and your experience, and talk to them and say, look, I'm afraid of flying. Maybe I want to sit in a classroom and talk with you about what it takes to fly. Maybe I want to sit in a plane, not even take off, just to feel what is it like to be in the seat. Mm-hmm. How is my body going to react to it? Some people have the experience of fear well up so badly just sitting in the pilot's seat that it's just the act of getting in the plane and getting out, and then getting in the plane again and getting out, and working through that routine of like, okay, this is going to become normal. And then for others, they say, look, okay, I know I'm scared. I'm just going to push myself out of my comfort zone. I'm just going to do the flight no matter what.
Right.
We'll keep it close to the airport. If I can't take it, we'll just say land right away. And I literally know of people that have come out terrified of flying and became pilots.
Right.
In fact, there's actually a woman who became an airshow pilot.
Really?
Yeah, she didn't come through here, but I remember reading her story,
Yeah,
and she was
sure.
absolutely afraid of flying. And now she's retired, and she flies around in a warbird at air shows.
That's
she
amazing
fell
to me.
so much in love with it, so it's very cool.
I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to jump in, surf on the edge of your comfort zone and really enjoy life. I mean, that's why we're here, right? So anyway, I want to thank Nick so much for giving us a little bit of his time and of course, wisdom about flying. I want to thank you guys for buying the book and taking the time to download this video. And we'll see you on the next video. I'm Tom Scarta, and I am the author of The Magic of Choosing Uncertainty.